You guys, if you aren't feeling the funk, I tell you, look at me. I am in a mood. It is Real Estate Renee. Uh-oh. I'm getting an echo.
Oh, I lost you. I think you're muted.
Corianne, what
This
am I
is
doing?
my moment to shine, y'all. That's why I'm here.
What did I do? I was on an
Okay,
echo.
you muted yourself, and I'm not quite sure where the echo is coming from, but it might have been me because mine was on. So I'm going to disappear in the back. Are you still hearing that echo? And then my next question is, do you have YouTube open? Is YouTube talking at you?
No.
Guys, this is live. There you
Okay,
go.
let's start
You get
over.
the tech
I got
issues.
it. I see where I went wrong. Okay, we're learning and growing, guys. This is real estate. You got to, sorry, Jaden.
That's good. I love
take
it.
two. What I'm going to do is take two. This is Hollywood. Anyway, guys, it's Real Estate Renee here in SoCal, your SoCal gal. And it's our second go at comping California. So the purpose of this show is just that. We are going to comp properties throughout California. I live in SoCal. Jaden is also in SoCal. Jaden is my buddy. And he is a young gun, but I'm telling you, he is dangerous, this guy, in a good way. He knows exactly what he's doing. I'm going to highlight people on the show. Occasionally you'll get me comping stuff. Jaden, I'm so happy to have you. You're guest number
Thank
two.
you for having me.
I know. This
Yes.
is brilliant. We met each other in Astro Flipping, which is a community that Jaden and I decided to be a part of. Those of you in the wholesale world know Jamil Damji. That's why we're following in order here, that we're doing Comping California after Straight Outta Comping and Comping Colorado with Corianne. So we want to bring you some value. So let's jump into it. Now, today I am feeling a little rock and roll. Why is that? If you know, you know. I, in my 20s, Jaden, at your age, used to own a record store. Yes, records that they used to play on a turntable, records and CDs. So I'm a music fanatic. I don't know. I'm just feeling a little bit rock and roll today. I'm bringing it. That's a little history about me. I'm also a real estate agent that has been working with investors for over 19 years. So, if you resonate with me and you want to do some business with me, you know where to find me right there with my name. And if Jaden resonates with you, he's going to say a little bit more about what he does and what he's up to. And let's just all work together. So Jaden, have at it.
Yeah, so I wholesale here in SoCal. Really only in SoCal, from I would say like Thousand Oaks all the way down to San Diego and anywhere in between. So yeah, just been doing it for maybe the last 3 years. Started off direct to seller, joined Astro where I met Renee, and then started doing all agent outreach.
Amazing. So you're doing only agent outreach. And I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of different ways to wholesale or work even in real estate. So if we use the umbrella of real estate and maybe a sub umbrella of investors, right? Because there's real estate and there's realtors and then there's investors and there's all different subsectors, and you've chosen wholesaling. And for those of you who are tuning in and you're not familiar with what wholesaling is, kind of a 1 or 2 sentences is, you're not really selling a property like you would as an agent. You're actually flipping a contract. So I might see a house that I like, and then I want to get that under contract with the listing agent or another investor. And I go, I'm not really interested in buying this property, but I'm going to sell the contract that I have to an end buyer, if you will. We'll call them an end buyer, a flipper, most likely. And I'm going to put a fee on top of that. So we don't call it a commission because it's not technically a commission. It's a fee. It's like a finder's fee. Hey, I had a relationship with the agent that has this potential off or on market property. I'm going to get it contracted. I'm going to take that hypothetical piece of paper, right, and that contract, and I'm going to sell it to the end buyer, but I get paid a fee for doing so. So that is wholesaling, and it's done across the country. It's as old as real estate itself. It's only become kind of a known name, I think, really in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. So as a younger person, Jaden is getting into it. And so Jaden, take it away, say a little bit more about maybe how you talk to the agent, if you would, and then we can just jump right into some comping. And guys, put your addresses in the chat too, because he has some stuff he wants to show you. And if you have a comp you want, an address you want comp, we can do that for you too live.
Yeah, for sure. So agent outreach, in my opinion, obviously, because that's what I focus on, is the best way to get these wholesale deals. It's the easiest, not easiest. Everything is, it's simple, but not so-called easy, but it's my favorite way. It's free. So what I focus on is just going and calling agents who have their properties already listed on MLS. The seller's hand is already raised saying they want to sell it. And really what you're looking for is just the homeowners who are looking to sell at a price point that makes sense for an investor. And so there's a lot of different reasons, whether they're in distress. Obviously, the property needs to have some work. And what you'll find is 90% of the time that they're going to be asking way too much, which is great. That's fine. If they're asking too much, try and build a relationship with the agent, build rapport, talk to the agent. And then if it's really needing a lot of work, what you kind of have an idea of where you need to be at. And hopefully, as we keep doing these calls and you understand comping a little bit more, you'll be able to get a good grasp on that and understand that, hey, this property is going to be for an investor. It's not financeable. It's probably not going to go to a homeowner. So I'll just stay in touch with you and check in with you every 2 weeks until your seller is actually ready to be to take that offer that's cash and where it needs to be at for it to trade.
Now that was a lot. I'm going to break it down a little bit, right? Because we're used to doing this. So you didn't say too much. We just want to break it down for maybe a new listener or somebody who's getting interested in this. They may have just happened upon this video and it's like, wait, what did he just say? So the name of the game really is follow-up. And one of the adages that floats around out there is the fortune is in the follow-up. And that is just business in general. It's very rare, guys. It is a fantasy that you're going to make one call, kind of a one and done. I think in the 19 years I've been doing business, I could probably tell you honestly on one hand where somebody said, wow, you're the right person right now. It's not that other people didn't call them. You're the right person right now. Come over here and I'll sign the contract. We call that a come list me, in terms of retail, come list me. That is rare, guys. So the fortune's in the follow-up, and it's worse now than ever with the attention economy where people are just looking left and looking right and getting shiny object syndrome. It's imperative that you stay in front of them. So Jaden, it sounds to me like you closing deals and making money and being of service is in how many touches do you think that is?
In form of contacts with the agents, I go off of my KPIs are 1 out of every 15 offers typically get accepted. About 60% of those will close. Obviously, the better you are at comping, the better you are at running your numbers and getting those offer prices, the more buyers you have, those all play into it. But on average across the board is about 60% that will actually close. And then if you're doing MLS offers, what I found is about 1 in every 5 properties that you're calling on is going to be something that you may be able to put an offer in on. And some of the reasons why the other 4 wouldn't work would be whether the agent just doesn't answer their phone. You've tried reaching out to them a bunch of times, they don't answer. Whether it's just not needing enough work for it to be a fix and flip. Whether it be those are 2 of the main ones where it's just not really a good fit for a fix and flip, things like that. So those are the other 4 that aren't. But out of the 5, let's say 5 properties that you pull up on the MLS that for the most part are needing some work, or the other reason would be that they already accepted by the time you saw it on the MLS, they already accepted an offer. They have 15 offers, especially in this market, and they have $30K over asking price if they price it really well. So those would be kind of the other options. But yeah, so 1 out of every 5. And then if you're doing just agent outreach, which is if you're just cold calling agents and you just have a list of agents, whether you go on realtor.com, you look up agents and you just cold call them. Hey, my name's Jaden, was just calling you on, would love to connect. I'm looking to purchase a few properties. Do you have anything that needs some work and could be a good fix and flip opportunity? Those you want to try and contact about 50 agents a day. Typically it's about a 50% answer rate. So I would try and get a list of 100 agents and dial all of them, double dial them. If they don't answer, call them right back. And then maybe even leave them a text if they don't answer after that. But about 50% answer rate. So that's a longer strategy. That's a relationship game. So typically MLS is going to be like your low-hanging fruit. So if you're looking for a deal as quick as possible, go to MLS, do that route, call as many agents as you possibly can. And what you'll find is that there's going to be agents or properties, or like it's just going to be the timing of things where you'll call an agent and they'll be like, look, this seller's ready to take anything, or this seller is willing to take, we're listed at 500, but they'll take 350 if you come in cash. Like, it's all timing with these types of MLS properties. And so if you're looking, that's gonna be like the low hanging fruit, and they're not gonna be maybe as big as wholesale fees, but a wholesale fee is a wholesale fee, and you can get it done and build a relationship with the agent and keep going. The agent outreach, which is going to be more so in the follow-up, you're not going to get a lot of times where you cold call an agent and they're like, hey, I have a property for you. That may happen, but it's going to be a lot more rare. And so that's a long game. Typically, it takes about maybe 8 to 12 touches of follow-ups. And let's say you're following up with them every 2 weeks before they actually produce an opportunity. And then, of course, when they do produce an opportunity, they're not always going to be deals. But what you'll find is that these properties, you may get a little bit bigger of a wholesale fee with it being off market, with there not being as much competition on them. You can come in and negotiate a little bit harder. So yeah, those are the two ways. That's the kind of KPIs that I follow and that I recommend following to get your deals done.
Jaden, you just dropped some nuggets, my man. I hope everybody is listening and taking notes, and definitely listen to the replay. Guys, even I do that. I mean, so I told you I'm in the business for 19 years, and every day is day one for me. And now I know a thing or two because I've been at this for a minute. So I earned the right. I did my 10,000 hours on certain areas. And the way you stay fresh in any business, particularly in real estate, because it's always a moving target, is if you have the mentality of coming at it like a life learner, then you're always going to be on top of your game, and then you can always contribute to something else. So just because Jaden is damn near half my age and then some, I get to learn from him. He's in a different generation. He has a different listening. And so stay open. I just wanted to put that out to the audience. A couple of things you said, and then we have a question, and then we'll get into the comping. Okay. So you used KPIs. And this is all lingo that you're going to find, I think, more specifically in the investor world. As a real estate agent, we don't often hear this. In fact, I don't think I ever heard KPIs. SOPs I heard, which is standard operating principles. That's kind of a general business acronym, right? Yeah, acronym. But KPIs is key performance indicators. So those are what Jaden had said. So generally speaking, you want to talk to about 50 people. Don't get too far into the weeds of what is talking to somebody until you really have your business going. It's like talking to somebody can be text messaging, calling on the phone, and Jaden alluded to, or maybe even Facebook really at this point. As long as you're not lying to yourself and you're having some kind of dialogue or touch point with somebody, I would consider that an actual contact for the day. And you want to at least get about 50 of those, not just, I sent out 100 texts and I got, 25 people back, but I talked to 100 people. No, this is the actual kind of conversation that you're starting. So we just want to be clear on what a KPI is. And that's, my definition. Is that something you would agree with?
100%. Yeah. KPIs for me is what helps you to, one, stay consistent, because in this business, it's very difficult to, like, leads and opportunities can come out of nowhere. And so you may get an opportunity from an agent and you made 20,000 in a month, and then you don't do a deal for the next 6 months because you're trying to figure out where did that come from? And so for me, KPIs is what keeps everything consistent, and what helps you to understand, hey, I didn't get a deal this month. Why is that? Because you don't know where those deals, they could come from MLS, they could come from following up with the agents in these scenarios, but you don't know where that's coming from. And so if you're like, hey, I didn't do a deal last month. Why is that? Oh, well, let me look at my KPIs. Oh, I only actually talked to 15 agents a day and maybe only put in 7 offers the whole month. Oh, okay, that makes sense. But if you're doing 5 offers a day and you're talking to 50 agents a day, now you look back, and if you didn't get a deal, you can look back and say, hey, where did I mess up, or what's going on? And it may be you putting in 5 offers a day for the last month. It may come in that next month. They may have not accepted it, and then they hit you back up the next month saying, hey, are you still, that happens all the time. That's why follow-up is so important, because you may put in an offer and then they come back and they're like, hey, are you still interested at this price point? Seller is actually ready to take it, right? And then you can go and reevaluate it and see if it's something you're looking for. But so yes, KPIs are what kind of help you track and really create the momentum in your business to keep going. And also to keep you looking forward, right? I mean, again, you don't know where they're coming from. So if you can kind of keep an eye on, okay, cool. If I put in 100 offers this month, I know for sure I'm going to get 1 deal, right? And now you're halfway through the month and you're maybe feeling a little bit down because you haven't gotten a deal yet and you've been putting in the work, and you look and you're like, well, I've only put in 50 offers. Okay, let me get to 100 and see what happens, right? And so it kind of keep you up and on track.
And predictability leads to some form of safety, right? Like you can predict how your business is going to go so that you don't stay in this state of depression. Like, oh my God, where's my business going? Or, oh, the market took a left-hand turn. I mean, you may have to ebb and flow a little bit in changing markets, but changing markets realistically only come around about every 10 to 12 years. That is National Association of Realtors statistics. So on the day-to-day, as Jaden's saying, you want to keep those KPIs. You can just do it in an Excel spreadsheet. Don't get fancy. Do it in an Excel spreadsheet. Keep them. When you get a little fancier and you can afford a CRM or customer relationship management system that will do kind of all that in the background, but you still need to do the work. You still need to reach out, talk to people, and then take those numbers and put it in your system over time. So I assert, businesses in 90-day cycles. I have a different explanation of it. Yes, it's in a 90-day cycle, but it's also, you are not working every day for 90 days. So if the average working month is between 18 to 20 days, that's really more like 4, maybe even almost close to 5 months. So don't get it twisted, guys. Like, it may take you 1 year to get going. I'm not saying 1 year to do a deal. I'm saying 1 year to get going so that you have those KPIs, so you have that predictability. And then that's where you start to attract talent and other people onto your team. And then you have a mark of expectation for them where they're starting, and you can say, hey, look, this is the future that we're living into. I'm going to train you, et cetera. You might not have the same statistics, but this is why it's so important. And the worst thing you can do is what I refer to as year one again. There's many people that have been in business for 19 years, that maybe have done year one again because all they're doing is deals, but they're not really building a business. So that's sort of another conversation for another day, but it is absolutely food for thought. Okay, we have a question. Yolanda asked us a question, and then Jacob put an address in for us. So we definitely want to get to the audience's addresses. Guys, if you have an address, or even if you're just kind of starting new at this and you just want to know what you think this address is worth, please go onto Zillow, go onto Redfin, pull up an address, put it in the chat, and we're going to get going. Okay, so Yolanda says, when do you start asking agents for off-market and expired listings? Jaden.
Yeah. Hey, Londa. So for off markets, I ask them all the time as soon as I start talking to them. So let's say, for example, if I'm calling a property that's on the MLS, towards the end of that conversation, or even if I call them back on it, but after I ran the numbers on it, and whether I find if it's a good fit or a bad fit, maybe I'm way off, maybe I'm 300,000 off from where it needs to be listed at. I can tell it's maybe a little bit cleaner than where it could be as an investor. I'll kind of decide whether it's worth telling them my number or not. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, I'm not a good fit for this one. It's going to be way off. And sometimes they're like, well, where are you? And then I'll tell them, and then they're like, oh, no, never. I'm like, well, that's what I told you, I'm way off. But with that being said, after that or beforehand, I'll just kind of be like, hey, do you, by any chance, I'd love to work with you. Do you happen to have anything else that could be a good opportunity? I don't normally ask them like directly, like, hey, do you have anything off market? Just because that's just my preference. I just ask if they have anything coming up, and a lot of times that'll lead to them being like, oh, you know what, I have one that's coming up. I'm working on it. I may list it next month. Okay, cool. And then you can ask, like, do you think that they'd be open to some offers before hitting the market? And then they'll be like, yeah, for sure. Like, let me talk to the seller or whatever. And then also on the follow-up. So the most important thing, as we've talked about, is on the follow-up. So if that's an agent who, at the end of that conversation, again, whether this is agent outreach or if you're talking to them on a property that they have, always try and get them to be okay with you following up with them. So I always just ask, like, hey, would love to work with you. Would you be against staying in touch for anything down the line? I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. I'm looking for single family homes in Southern California that need work that I can fix and flip. Would you be against staying in touch? And most of the time, they'll be like, yeah, no problem. Send me a text with your info and I'll let you know, right? But they're never going to, as soon as you hang up that phone, they're going to forget your name. They're going to forget who you are. They're going to forget what you talked about. So you always want to make sure that you are following up with them. So I just send them a text. And then let's say if you can set your cadence for how often you want to follow up. I like to do at least 2 to 3 weeks. I don't want to bug them. You can do it sooner. You can do it longer. I would say 2 to 3 weeks is a good amount of time. But once you talk to them on the follow-up call, then now you're really always asking for off markets or, hey, do you have anything coming up? So that call quickly can just be like, hey, Yolanda, this is Jaden. I was just giving you a call. I want to check in with you. I'm looking to purchase a few more properties this month. Do you happen to know of anything that needs some work and could be a good opportunity? And then that's for that. So that's a lot of times we'll get you off markets, or sometimes we'll send you on markets. But don't be afraid of on markets. A lot of my deals, maybe 50% of them are on the market. So you can do both. Just make sure, again, like if it's listed at a certain price and it's been 40 days, let's say it's listed at 700 and it's been 40 days on the market. If your numbers come back saying that you should offer 700, it's either one or two things. One, you're probably off on your numbers because it's been sitting at 700 for 40 days, which means it's not a deal. Or two, maybe they did a price reduction or whatever, but you just want to make sure that you're a good amount. If it's 40 days, you want to make sure you're maybe at least 30K under that price selling it at. So you want to at least be selling it to your investors at 670 because you need to show that there's a discount. You need to show that there's an actual opportunity there. Because if you show it to an investor, hey, this is at 700, will you be interested? They're going to be like, they won't even comp it if they see it's been listed for 40 days and you're selling it right around where they're listed at. So I know that was a lot of information, but to answer your question, that's when I do ask the agents for off markets.
It's all good, Jaden. Listen, that's why we record these things, because I myself and Jaden want to bring you the most amount of value. And we're live, guys. This is not scripted. It's a one take. So thank you for your patience and thank you for your participation. And so let's get into it, because we've got some good introductions. As I bring you up on the stage here, can you bring up your privy? There you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
So Jaden, quickly too, because I know you introduced yourself, but how long have you actually been wholesaling? And I think maybe you might be licensed, right?
I am licensed. Yes. I got my license with all these talks of maybe you need to be a license in wholesale. Now don't let that scare you. But I just got it just in case, so that when it does happen, which it probably will, maybe in the next few years, I'm sure you would have more to add on that. But I just got it just in case. I'm not actually under a brokerage, so I don't act as an agent like you do. But I just got it. And so I've been wholesaling in total for maybe 4 years, since 2020. So 4 years. And yeah, so I used Privy to comp all of my deals. And so do we have an address already?
We do. Can you see it there?
5735,
or do I need to say it?
Can you say it and I'll type it in?
I will. 57. So Jacob, thank you so much for putting in this address. So it's 5735 Bowesfield, Bowes Field, Bowesfield, in 90016. Guys, I think in zip codes. So 90016 is actually Mid-City. It's Jefferson Park area. And this is not a brag. I want you to listen. This is the kind of thinking that you need for your market. So whatever market you're going to go in, you want to get this good. You want to be driving around. If you're in your market, or at least do virtual driving, go on Google Earth, look at zip codes, drill down. You think this is a lot of work? It is. This is not a television show, but I'm telling you that the more you know about your market, you can already start to think, who are the clients, right? Remember, I told you I earned my 10,000 hours. Well, I've had other retail listings. I've driven around 90016, right? So I can say that off the top of my head, but this is the future you want to live into if you're going to be in real estate as an investor, or if you are an agent and you know your neighborhoods, you want to start to listen into and listen for investor opportunities within these zip codes and what's going on. So have at it, Jaden. Let's see how you actually comp. And by the way, guys, this is Privy. So Jaden, talk a little bit about Privy for a second here, so guys, people know what this is.
Yeah, so Privy is a software that helps you, honestly, with everything. I mainly use it for comping and also finding active properties. You can add some filters and find properties with keywords, and which you can do most of this stuff on Zillow and Redfin as well. And so it's kind of really up to preference. I just like the layout of Privy. It's easy for me to work with. And I know people who prefer Redfin. I know people who prefer Zillow. So this is just my personal preference that I use for comping properties and also finding addresses to call on.
Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to take
Yeah.
myself down for a minute and I'm going to let you have the stage so you can have at it. Whoops.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Awesome.
Oh boy, that was me. Hang on. Sorry.
Okay, so for this one, shout out Jacob. I know Jacob. He's a great guy. So for Bowesfield, the first thing when looking it up that I would notice is how many days has it been on market, right? So 275 days on market. Normally there's an arrow that'll show if it's been like price reduced or not. So just showing this part and there's no price reduction. There may be. I'll scroll down to see. Or it looks like it was inactive in 2023 at $1.5 million. They were listed in August. So these are all things that you just kind of want to be aware of when looking at it and seeing what the market is saying. So it was already listed at $1.5 million. Maybe they're probably priced too high. Next thing I look at is just the pictures. And seeing what type of condition it's in, if it's needing a ton of work, if it's pretty clean, if it's cosmetic. So this one, it actually looks like they may have bought it and started doing some rehab on it. You can see kind of the newer counters and backsplash and cabinets, and then maybe some newer floors. Stuff is kind of taken out. So it looks like they're maybe starting a rehab on it. So this is all, again, things to keep in mind when going in for your offer. You can see some junk in the back. So now I just scroll down to the comparable section. And the first thing I do when actually looking at a property is I like to go to satellite view. And I like to kind of mark out my area. So for this one, and in SoCal, what you'll find is there's a lot of pockets in LA that you want to be wary of. And so because the main reason is you can be comping a property and use a comp that may be down here. And it may be within a mile, maybe within 0.5 a mile, but the value of that property is so much more because of the neighborhood that it's in. So to try and you'll start to get familiar with this stuff over time. And as you start comping and talking to buyers and talking to other wholesalers or people in your market, you'll start to get familiar, even agents, when you're talking to them with the market. But when you're starting off, to try and kind of get the most accurate number, you don't want to cross any major roads. So the first thing I would do is I would just draw a line so that I make sure that it's only showing me stuff that's not crossing any major roads. So I'd come up here and then just draw this line. So now it's only showing me stuff in this area. And then I go to settings and click all privy. Tries to help you as much with comping as possible. But again, it is still a technology. And so it's not always the most accurate, but it tries to help you. So these are the properties that it thinks are good comps already. But I just like to show all, so that it shows me everything, even the things that it may not think is the best comps. And sometimes it'll show you a lot more properties than you're seeing now. Sometimes it's pretty close to already what was there. So now I would just go in. So I have this area on all the properties that I'm looking for. Next thing I do is I just go back down to this sold area and I click it because I want to get them in order from the most recent sale. When comping a property, you want to look at the properties that have sold ideally in the last 3 months. Those are going to be your best indicators and best comps if you can find something in the last 3 months. If there's literally nothing in the last 3 months that has sold, you can go back to 6 months. If there's nothing there, it just gets a little bit, you don't want to, but if you have to, you can go back a little bit over 6 months and try and keep it within the year. But again, ideally you want to go in within 3 months. So what I look for first is I just go to this sold section. I click it in order so that it's showing me all the recent sales. So this one was in 5/21. And then I kind of just go down the line from here and making sure that they match up. So with your comping rules, you want to make sure that your year build is within 10 years of your subject. Your lot size is within, I would say, 3,000 square feet of the lot. You want to make sure that it's the same level. So if it's a 1 story, you want to make sure you're only comping with 1 story. If it's 2 story, you're only comping with 2 stories. Garages, you want to try and match them up. If there's not, you can make them adjustments. So if maybe you have a 1-car garage and ours is a 2-car garage, or there's a 2-car garage and ours is a 1-car garage, you can make adjustments, maybe 10 to 15K up or down. So if you don't have a 2-car garage, you can adjust 10K, 15K for that off the price point. Going through again, bed and bath, you want to keep them 2 2s to 2 2s, right? You're comparing apples to apples. And so when there's nothing else, let's say, for example, there's no other 2 2s that I can comp it with, you can then adjust your number from there. But again, the most accurate number you're going to get is if you're comping it with another 2 2. So the more you kind of stray away from these rules, the more, let's say, inaccurate your number will be. The more you stay closer to, now again, your number, you're never going to have a specific, like a number where you're like, this ARV is 1.5. Like that's never, and then if they list it, if someone fixes up and lists for 1.5, you don't know where it's going to sell at. But again, this is just going to get you the most accurate number. So again, you want to stay in the same bed and bath count. And then the last thing would be square footage. You want to stay within 300 square feet of the subject. So let's look at this one. This one actually seems pretty good. It's all kind of matches up actually perfectly. So it's a 1950 build. It's within our preferred lot size. It's a 3-2. So it does have an extra bedroom. So we're going to look at this, but we're also going to see if there's any other 2-2s that will give us some idea on where we need to be at. So this is a 3-2. It's sold for 1.43. You can actually see, the cool thing about Privy is you can see where they bought it at. So this one, like when it has these kind of arrows, it shows that they bought it at 1 million. It was a 2-2, which it looks like, if you can see it, it transforms into a 3-2. That means that they added a bedroom, which is also a good indicator that, hey, maybe the play for this one for an investor is to add a bedroom. That may be the best play for the investor to get the most out of the property. The highest and best use is to add an additional bedroom. So you can see that that's what they did here. It's a two bathroom as well. And then square footage, we're very close. This is only like 35 square feet off. So again, you want to stay within 3,000. So this is perfect. So this one, now the next thing I do is I just look at the property itself. So this one is on 5655 Sunlight. This is the property. I also like to see where are we. So this is another great property because it's very close by. So looking at this property, now I'll just click on it and see like, hey, was this one a fix and flip, right? And you can already kind of tell by the door, by the pictures that this was probably a fix and flip. And I just look through quickly at the pictures and you can tell this one's really nicely done. It was a fix and flip. I also just sometimes like to scroll down and see like what, so on Privy as well, the cool thing is you can see the before and after pictures sometimes as well. So you can see that this one was very dated, needing some work. This one was bought in November of 23. They just sold it in May of 24 and did a really nice job. They bought it. The other cool thing about Privy is that you can see they bought it for 70% of ARV. So this could be a buyer that you can add to your list and maybe even sell them this property if you can get it at the right price. And then so here's how you would do that. You just go to property history and you can see SoCal Residential Homes LLC is the investor, right? You can see they bought it here, SoCal Residential Homes LLC, and they sold it here, which you can now try and skip trace them, go to opencorporates.com, put their LLC in there, try and find who the owner is, the managing member, whoever it may be, and get their information and call them and see if you can sell them this property or get their information and see what they're buying so you can keep them in mind for your next opportunities. So this one, I like it a lot. It's a 4-3. Typically, anything above $1 million, you're going to want to adjust a good amount for an extra bedroom. I would say at least 30K for an extra bedroom. So right now, I would say we're at about a 1.4 ARV. Now, with that being said, when you're comping a property, my goal and what I always tell people is you want to kind of paint a story of where this property can sell at. So I wouldn't just use this property. I like to have at least 2 to 3 things that I can point to that shows me I may be at a 1.4 ARV. So I'm not going to just stop here. This one was great because it was the first one here. But let's keep looking. So we have an 1,800 square feet one. This one sold for 176. I'm not going to use it just because it's a little bit too big. It is within that 3,000 square feet, but if you have like, it's such a big difference on price at 176, you have this 143 right across the street. This is going to be a better comp for you. So like you would use this like only if there was nothing else. So we have this one. So let's see if there's anything else that we can find a little bit closer to our subject. So again, this is perfect because it's showing me the most recent sales. We can keep going down 1,900. So let's look for something closer. We have this 1,600. Okay, this one's cool because it's another 2-2. So this one's 1,600 square feet on Redondo Boulevard, a 2-2, 1940 build. So it's pretty close. It's within that 10 years. Let's go back down here so I don't confuse you guys. Where to go? Okay, so sold in March, 1940 build. We're 48. This one's a little bit bigger on lot size, but it's still good. One level, it's a 2-2, so that's good for us. 1,600 square feet. So this one, let's look at the pictures. I can already tell it's not fixed up. It's sold for $1,055,000. This one you can see from the pictures it needs work. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to scroll down and see like wasn't it a buyer who bought it? So look at this. Simple Buy LLC bought this property for $1,055,000 on March 6th, and they're going to be fixing flipping. You can tell because it's an LLC, and so they're probably going to fix and flip this. I like to just kind of look and see where it was. It's right here, so it's very close to our property as well. That's another good indicator on kind of where you need to be at or where a buyer would purchase this at, right? This is not a comp to get you to your ARV. It's more so a comp to find buyers in that area and more so kind of what they're buying, where they're buying these fixtures at. So let's keep looking to see if we can find anything else for our ARV. We have 2,700 square feet, which I'm not going to use. We have a 1,300 square feet. Let's see this one, a 3-1, 1,300 square feet, bought at $1,025,000. This one looks clean. It's not, it doesn't look like it was a full remodel, but it's nice. It's actually not bad. It's pretty clean. This one, let's just see. I'm just always curious. So this was also another LLC. So again, now you can see, okay, there's two LLCs buying this area, both of them buying between 125 and 155. Now this property, they're active at $1,005,000. So I would be curious on what the situation is, because right now this is showing me maybe this property should have been sold by now. Like, why hasn't this one sold? It looks like, I mean, going down, it looks like it was inactive. So this may not even be accurate as far as like the 200. Sometimes Privy like includes these inactive days. So since it's been inactive since 10/11/23, it may include all of that. And so sometimes it may be a probate that puts why agents put them on inactive, or the seller decided not to sell, whatever the case may be. So let's finally keep going through. Let's just see if we can find anything else that either can bring our ARV up or can prove us a little bit different on the value. So we have another one on Redondo Boulevard, a 2-1, 1,200 square feet. This one sold for $1,085,000. This one is actually looks like it was a fix and flip. So let's see actually going down a property
Jaden,
history.
say why you think that actually looks like a fix and flip. We know,
yeah,
but say what you're identifying.
Yes. So the first thing when you look at the pictures, a lot of times the first indicators would be the kitchen. You can see the newer, it doesn't look like they maybe did the best job, but you can see the newer cabinets, the newer the counters, sink, floors look to be nice. Maybe they're a little bit different. Or maybe this one probably more likely is a homeowner who lived there, and before selling them, they redid the kitchen and added some floors. And so this is what they don't have any pictures of the bathroom. They do. Another indicator would be the bathroom. So this one, it's not a nicely done bathroom, but it's clean. So again, I'm thinking that this was a homeowner who lived there, kind of spruced it up a little bit before actually selling it. So those are the reasons. Those are going to be like the first few things that you notice is going to be the kitchen, floors, bathroom is how you're going to be able to tell if it was a fix and flip. And let's just see if there's anything else. Okay, so that's basically it. Those are kind of all our comps that we have to work with in this area. And so I do really like this one. So because we weren't able to find another 2.2 that was fully remodeled and done, I'm going to use this one. And so I'm going to take this 1430, and again, I'm going to adjust the extra bedroom. I'm going to take off 30K for that, and I'm going to call our ARV 14. Now our goal is to find out what the offer price should be. So we're going to take 14. A very simple formula, if you're just starting off, is in LA, in this area, you're going to want to be around 70% of that number. So let's see what 70% gets us. So 14, and I just take it times 0.7. That gets us to offer 980. Now, that 70% includes your wholesale fee. So you can, it kind of depends. For me, that would include my wholesale fee. So at a 980, I'd probably shop this thing at $1 million and see if I can find a buyer. You may even shop it a little more. And so the other way how I figured it out is I would do 14 times 83%. And what that is that includes about 7% for selling costs. 5% for selling costs. That's realtor commissions on the back end. When your investor that you sell it to goes to relist it, they have to pay the fees, the realtor fees, the selling and buying costs. So that's about 5%, and then another about 2% for closing costs and holding costs, whether they have fees on their if they have a hard money loan, monthly fees, things like that. You just want to include in. So I calculate about 2%. So that, and then most investors in SoCal try to make about 10% on the property. So if it's a 1.4 ARV, they're going to be trying to make about 140 grand on this property. So that's taking out 10%. So that's where that 0.83 comes from, is taking out that 10%. So the other route is to do 1,400,000 times 0.83. That gets us to 1,162. Now from there, now you take out the rehab amount and you take out your wholesale fee. So for the rehab, a good way to get the rehab, first, I like to look at what the comp, how nice was the comp done, right? So to get my estimate on rehab and kind of the materials that they use, you can see they did a really nice job on the property. It's not like they kind of just went in and did it very quickly, right? The backsplash goes all the way up. They have this for the above the oven. The cabinets are nicely done. The floors are nice. It looks like they spent some money on this one. They did some landscaping. The bathroom's really nice. They redid the shower. So for this type of remodel, I would do $70 a square foot. $70 should get you there. So let's do 1,590 times 70. That takes us to 110 on the rehab cost. So 70 times 1,590, which is so $70 square foot times 1,590 square feet. That gets us to 110 rehab costs. I always like to be a little more conservative. So I'd maybe call it 120 just to be conservative for the investor. Maybe there's something that you don't see. Maybe the investors, their costs are a little bit higher. So you always want to be a little bit more conservative on that number. So with that being said, let's call it 120 rehab. So again, we're going to go back. So we're still trying to figure out what our offer price is. We're going to go to 1.4, which is our ARV, times 0.83. Again, that's for selling costs, holding costs, closing costs, and then 10% out of that for the investor's profit. So 0.83, that takes to 1,162. Let's subtract 120,000 out of that for our rehab. That takes us to 1,042,000. And at 1,042,000, let's say we want to make 20, or our goal is to make, let's call it 30K, right? Take out 30K out of that number. That shows that we can assign this for 1,012,000, and the investor can come in, purchase it at 1,012,000, and still put 120K in rehab and make 140K after all fees and everything's taken out. So again, at that 70% number, which was at 980, that 980 would be it's a good amount. You're kind of a good amount off. So that kind of shows you, I like to do both formulas, like as quick fires. Like if I'm doing it really quickly and I'm going through a lot of properties, I may call up the agent and say, hey, I would need to be closer to 980 on this one, or I need to be high nines on this one, knowing that there may be a little bit of room for me to play with. And so that way, if the agent's like, okay, cool, let's write it up at 980, the seller comes back at $1 million. Now I do that. Well, I do the other formula first as well, but now I know kind of where I can sell this thing at $1,012,000, maybe even a little bit more, push it to another buyer who may be able to be okay with making $100,000 instead of $140,000, right? So I know I have that room to play with. And so if they count at $1 million or even $1,005,000, I may be able to come up to that price point. And then the other indicator, again, what we found when we were painting the story on this property is we found the few properties that sold very similar, like the one on Two Investors, like this one on Redondo sold for $1,055,000 in March. And so we can kind of see that these are right around where these people are picking them up at, and where we may be able to sell them at. So that's that one. Renee, do we have any more?
This is brilliant, guys. Just in the spirit of time, I want to make sure if you guys can put a thumbs up emoji in the chat if we might go over a little bit. I know we have about 15 minutes left. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. This is an hour-long show. So if I get enough thumbs up, we'll go a little bit over. We can do another address. And, you know, guys, in this particular show, Jaden, let me do this. All right, let's do this. In this particular show, now we're on CNN, you know, we really are a bit methodical because comping is an art, not a science. And so when you're creating something artistic, it takes time. And so Jaden had mentioned to you, he's been at least wholesaling or in this conversation for about 4 years. If you're tuning in and you're brand new to this, please don't feel like, oh my gosh, I just drank from a fire hose. I feel like I want to quit. This is the whole purpose of this show, is that it's recorded and you can go back and you can be methodical. This is the part where it's a craft, right? It's not going to come to you immediately. So Jaden took a good, 20, 25 minutes to comp one property, and it might take you that long. And he's also very versed. So realize that when you're doing this business, that you need to carve out some time management to actually not only learn this, but then comp correctly. Because I assert that one of the reasons why investors and agents don't particularly like each other is because investors, especially wholesalers, get properties under contract that they're looking for a buyer higher than it should be. And that's why they're canceling contracts. It's almost always based on price. So please, if this is a benchmark show for you, Comping California #2, put this, star it and put it back. And I've even gotten a couple nuggets, from Jaden where, you want to learn this. This is going to be the crux and the cornerstone of what you're doing as a real estate investor, whether you're on the buy side, the wholesale side, the small lot development side, whatever you're at, you've got to know your numbers, period, end of story. So as far as doing another address, I've gotten a couple thumbs up. Okay, a thumbs up. There is one more, Jaden. Maybe we can blaze through it, and then we do have some questions. So let's do this one. It is 1831 Benedict, Benedict, Benedict. It's supposed to be Canyon, Benedict Canyon Road, right in Beverly Hills, 90210. So not for the faint of heart. Anybody doing a flip in Beverly Hills? Oh, let me do this. I'm so sorry. Let me go to boom. There we go.
Cool. Okay. So here's this property. We'll go through a little bit quicker on this one. Again, first thing I look at, I can see it's pending. So hopefully, Yolanda, you have it under contract, or if not, maybe you're talking to the agent on this one and maybe it's falling out or whatever the case may be. But you can see it's pending right now. And you can, first thing again, I look at is the pictures. What type of condition is it in? You can see it's needing a good amount of work. They have bars over, what is this, a window or a door? Maybe there's people breaking in, squatters coming in. It needs a lot of work, right? It's probably a full gut. You're going to need to replace everything. Yeah, you can see over the windows, there probably was squatters coming in. It's probably been vacant for a while. So these are all things when you're talking to the agent, you want to see what's going on. So a good question is like, hey, I just wanted to see if there's anything else. What else can you tell me about the condition? You want to ask it with an open-ended so that they can just ramble on and be like, oh yeah, the condition, da 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 da. What else can you tell me about it? Is there any? Do you know of anything major, like foundation issues, roof, electrical, plumbing, things like that? You start saying like, hey, I can tell maybe it's been vacant for a while. Has there been any people broken in? Like, what's the situation? What's the story with this one, right? And just try and get them talking, give them as much, and they can give you as much information as possible. Again, we're going to go down to our comps. I'm going to go to all. So we have a single family home. Let's see what pops up. So I'm going to go to the satellite view so I can see. So again, as we know, Beverly Hills is a little bit of a tricky area to comp because once you get up into the hills, there's a lot of different things that now play a role. And so one of the main things is the view. If you have a property that you may not be able to tell, maybe you're looking at two things like this, or like like a property here and a property here. And this property sold for $2.2 million, but this property can see over all of LA and has great views. Of course, that one's going to sell for a lot more than your property if you're looking at nothing or you're looking at a hill, right? So these are all factors that you want to consider when looking in this in Beverly Hills and when you go up to these higher points. So I just try and look at, when you're looking at comps, look at the view, look at the pictures, look at your pictures and see. So it doesn't look like we have any views just from these pictures. You can also do the street view really quick and just kind of see. Yeah, it looks like we're just in the and also another thing is we're on a main road, which you can tell it's a main road by these double yellow lines. So it's a busier street, which is also going to affect our value. If you have a home on a quiet neighborhood where it's in a cul-de-sac, it's going to sell for more than a property that's on the main road. Typically, if you're facing a main road, depending on the busyness and where you're at, it can typically affect up to 20% of the value. Okay, so going back down to our property again, what I like to do is just check and see what's the most recent sold, and then I just go from there. So here I just filter them back out in order. So this one just sold recently for $570. Now I can tell this one is not a fixer, right? So I'm going to move past this one. We now have this one that's sold on Beverly Glen. In 1926. It's a little bit out of our year build date, so I'm not going to use that one. It's also only a 2,500 square foot lot. So we're going to go down. Again, this one's similar. So it looks like actually what you can start to tell is like these ones, maybe it's a different area, right? So these ones, you can tell that both of these two are in this area. They both have smaller lot sizes. This one as well. So you can, I'm going to try, if I can, to stay maybe around here. Maybe around this area. So I'm actually going to come in. I'm going to redraw it just a little bit. I'm going to include those ones because I want to see what it's giving me. But I'm just going to go up just a little bit further. I don't want to go too far up. And now it's going to show me just a little bit more activity. Not too much. But so we're going to keep going down again. So we have this 1.2. It's on a smaller lot. We have this one, 1.27. This is on a 58. A little bit out of our year build. So we're going to keep going. This one sold for, okay, so what's this one? So this one sold for 1.74. It's a 59 build. So it's a little bit out of our build generation, but let's just kind of see where they're at. It's also 2-level. So this one's not a comp as well. Let's keep going. We have this one on Beverly Glen, 37, 62 build. Again, a little bit out of our build generation. See if we can find anything else. Benedict Cannon. So we have this one. Where did it go? So we have a 1,500 square feet. This one sold in October. 10-year build. A little bit bigger lot size. It's 10,000 square foot bigger. It's a 2.2 as well. Sold for $3 million. 1,500 square feet. So let's just see, what is this one? What is this one for so much? Okay, so this one's nice. This one looks like it was updated. Actually, a really nice remodel. Oh, this one's beautiful. It looks like they actually. This one might have been a fix flip as well. Let's see. Yeah, this one is really nicely done. They have a good yard. They did the yard really nice. The inside's really nice. Okay, so where is this one first? Okay, so this one is off the same street, which is good for us. It looks like it's a little bit higher up as far as the location. It doesn't look like they have views, like too many views. It does look like a little bit nicer of a property as far as, and it's also way bigger of a lot size. But when we're looking at these properties, there's not a lot we can work with. So these are the ones that are going to come up where you're like, hey, what do I use? There's not really anything here that's actually comparable. And so then now this is where you try and get as close to those comping rules as you can without kind of going too far off. And again, now your number's really going to come from when you, like, this is going to be one that a buyer is going to really, who's familiar with this area, is going to really be able to tell you kind of where they're at, because it's difficult, right? Because you don't have a lot of stuff to work with. There's not a lot of comps that you can use. You want to stay very close. So let's just see like if there's anything else that we could use maybe around here.
And something to consider too, guys, while Jaden's doing that is, while you're in your travels and you're talking to different buyers or talking to agents, a place that's like a Beverly Hills, wherever it is in your community, you may end up actually having some end buyers. It's not always a flip. You're most likely going to this is going to be a tear down. It's a better use of the structure or the land. And or you may actually have an end buyer. So this isn't necessarily a flip. You want to comp it as a flip, but don't throw it away if your offer wouldn't get accepted at the flip price. So you've got to know, obviously, your micro market, I'll say area or micro market, being a Beverly Hills. So this is so important to know that. And Jaden's so on point with views, because this is another area that not only because it's high end, everybody knows in the world pretty much where Beverly Hills is, but the views matter. So the flats of Beverly Hills, which is an actual area, the flats versus the hills are going to matter. Again, back to knowing your micro markets. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. You don't always have to think just myopically like, oh, this is only going to be for a flipper. Who could this actually sell to?
Right, 100%. Another thing I like to do when you're coming across these properties that there's not a lot of sold comps that you can use or you can look at. Another indicator, now these aren't going to be comps, these aren't going to be solid that you can use, but these are indicators that show you where the market's at. I like to look at what's active in this area. And so there's a lot more active in this area than there are that are sold. So I like to kind of see what's the market showing me. Has there been anything that's similar, maybe comparable, that's on the market that's been fixed and flipped and maybe hasn't sold yet, or maybe just got listed? Or like, what are these investors thinking that they're worth when they're fixed and flipped? So again, these aren't properties that you're going to be able to be just like, hey, this is my ARV because this one's active. No, these are just indicators on where maybe your property is. What are they thinking in this area, right? So this one here, we have a 2.2, 1,400 square feet, a little bit smaller of a lot size. It's a little bit out of our build generation within 15 years, but let's just take a look. So this one's listed at 1.6, and it looks like they've been on the market 98 days. They just did a price reduction. I mean, they're having a little bit hard time of selling it. This one looks to be remodeled. So this would be a comp. Actually, no, this one is 2 stories. So this one would not be a comp that we would use, but let's keep looking. Let's see if there's anything else. So we have that one, another 2 stories. These are actually all 2 stories. Let's see if there's anything else.
And Jaden, I'm going to put a question in here. It's a little bit lengthy, so take a second if you could to read it, but I think it's important for what you're doing. So I'm going to put it up here on the screen.
Okay, hold on. Do you want to read it to me while I'm comping this one, or seeing if there's anything else?
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so Melora says, curious, when drawing the lines along major roads for the comparable values, why would the higher price home be excluded when it is within the allowable distance for an appraiser's comparable?
Got it. Because in LA, or in a lot of areas, but if you're crossing a major road, that's a good indicator that you're going to be into a different subdivision. And so you want to make sure that you're not crossing subdivisions and comparing apples. You want to make sure, again, you're comparing apples with apples. So if you're crossing a subdivision, you're in a different neighborhood, you're in a different location, where in that neighborhood, and you may even be in a different zip code. I've come properties where just one street over, maybe one major road over, right? It's within 0.5 of a mile. Now all of a sudden you're in 90210. Now you're in just a whole nother zip code, which is going to be a whole nother purchase prices. You may even be in different school zones where the schools are nicer in one area than in the other area, and people are willing to pay a little bit more in that area than to be in the other school zone. So there's a lot of reasons, but you don't want to cross. Now there are times where if there's nothing else, you may be able to cross a major road. But that's, again, you have to really know that market and that location to see if it's okay. So if you're just starting off and you're not too familiar with the area that you're comping it in, then you want to always make sure that you're never crossing any major roads. So that's one of the main reasons. There are times where, like, I've had properties where I've been comping them, and maybe 2 streets over, there was a property that sold for, let's say, like 1.7, and I thought, hey, that's a great comp. And then all of a sudden, when I get under contract, I go to shop it out. All the buyers are like, oh no, that's not a comp. You're in a different area. These properties sell for 1.7 because you're in this area. Our property is not in this area. You're going to be closer to a 1.4 ARV, right? Or a 1.5. So you just always want to be aware. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. And guys, this goes back to knowing your micro market. So sometimes these television shows, they make real estate look really simple. And for the most part, it's a simple business. It's not always easy. So in your downtime, if you really want it, you got to go after it. You need to not be watching Netflix for a good, 4 to 6 months, and be watching something like this, like How to Comp, because it will matter. And the agents, especially in these high-end markets, they will sniff out somebody that doesn't know. They know every stinking house in Beverly Hills. They've either door knocked it, driven it, walked it. Why? Because the client demands it. And so if this is an area that you want to play in because you think there's going to be bigger spreads or a bigger commission or what have you, you really need to be on point. And listen, I'm not above it. Like, I've got friends that do actually work just the city limits of Beverly Hills, and I don't know everything. I call them. That's their wheelhouse. So don't be afraid to JV or partnership or any of that kind of stuff. Call people up that are buddies. That's why you want to get to know people, other agents and other investors as well. So just something to consider. All right, Jaden. Yeah, we'll get this one out. We'll get a couple questions going, and then we'll wrap it up. So
Sure.
Keep going.
Yes. So lastly on this one, honestly, there's really not a lot to work with this one. There's not a lot of comps in this area that are actually comparable. Not a lot of 1,300 square feet. And this is also where I look into, okay, well, is this one better for a tear down, right? Do I tear it down? And a good indicator for that is to see, is there any new builds in this area, which there's not. Newest build is 2013. So maybe there's not a lot of new builds going on, which doesn't mean it's impossible, but just kind of a good indicator on the market. So just looking lastly to see if there's anything else. We have that 3 million that sold. I don't like that one as a comp. It's really nicely done, but it's also on a lot bigger of a lot size. So I wouldn't use that one personally. But there's just not a lot. Let's see if this one is, it's on that road, but it has such a bit bigger lot that it's a little bit pushed back. So you're not as affected with this one. To wrap it up, let's just see if there's anything else. Again, to look at the actives and seeing if there's anything that we can use. We have, this one is also kind of throwing me off. Although it is a 2-story, it's listed, it's very nicely done at 1.6, and it's very nearby. So where is this one? Oh yeah, it's right here. So this one is listed at 1.6, which I just, and they're not able to sell it. Looks like they've been having a hard time selling it. They just did another price reduction. They may be pending, so maybe they got that 1.6 price point. Typically, in this area, 2 stories may go for a little bit more than that price point. So let's just see if there's anything else really quick. There's just not a lot. We have this again, 1273. So let's try and use this one. Let's adjust. Again, this is difficult because there's we're really stretching it here. At a 1.7, I've seen people, when there's nothing else, adjust for 2-story up to 10-20%. I also have seen, we're on a main road, we're on a busy street, so I would adjust 20% for that as well. Let's just see if there's anything 1-story that we can adjust with. 3 million. It's really only this 3 million. What are your thoughts, Renee? What do you think on this one? I know you're a little more familiar with Beverly Hills.
Yeah, honestly, the current ask, it started a little high. I mean, even if I think, just to be on the conservative side, because there aren't any views, although it is a 90210. Let's just be conservative and say maybe like $1.5 million as the ARV. The ARV is an acronym for after repair value. Again, for those of you who are just tuning in or aren't familiar with all these little acronyms that we throw out. So even at a 70% rule, I mean, it's maybe I can even be conservative and say, yeah, $1.3 million, between $1.3 million and $1.5 million. Obviously,
I call it
depends
$1.3
on
million.
the $1.3 million. Yeah. So now if we do the 70% rule and we just use that, we're right in the 934,900. So the fact that it was reduced to 934,900, again, because I know this area, I can think to myself, geez, anything under $1 million in Beverly Hills, almost irregardless of its condition, is going to get somebody's attention. So the fact that they were able to go under that, I say to myself, okay, where's this going? What's it doing? Even though it sounds good, it may end up being costly and better as a tear down and a new construction, which is going to be more expensive overall. Anyway, 934,900, is not a bad price. That's why it's under my ICERT, right? That's why it's under contract and pending, because it finally got to be where it needs to be, regardless of it's a flip, regardless of it's an end buyer. If it's an end buyer, somebody's getting probably a pretty darn good deal.
Right. Yes. For this one, just wrap it up again. I agree. I think I put it at 1.3. You just want to be conservative. Another thing you can do is talk to the agent. This agent got this listing. They may probably be familiar more with this area. So a good question is, hey, I'm looking at, what do you think the back end value on this is, right? Okay, cool, right? What do you have any comps that can show me that value, or what are you thinking, right? And try and get some insight from the agent. They may have a lot more insight. They may be familiar. They may have sold 3 houses in this area, right? So you just want to try and get that information from them. And then yes, at 934 with this property, I wouldn't come in at 70%. I would come in between 60 and 65% with this condition. Again, you can use the the 83% minus rehab. For your rehab for this, you're going to be around $100 a square foot. Maybe even a little bit more depending on what exactly needs to be done. But yes, so that's to wrap up that one. That one, again, was a lot more difficult, but that's where you have to be a little more creative. And when they're like this, you want to be very conservative. So that's why I didn't just automatically use that 3 million, because it's just like, it's going to be hard to prove that 3 million because it's not really comparable. There's not a lot really you can use with it. So be very conservative when you're in situations like this.
Jaden. Yolanda threw us off. Yolanda gave us a curveball, but you know what? You did.
It's good because not every property is going to be cookie cutter like that, and so that's where a lot of the science and comes behind it, right? You have to be able to adjust and to be able to have, and when you're familiar with these properties and you get a lot under your belt, you're going to be able to decide more and understand, because you may be coming at and you're maybe a beginner and think, hey, this is properties worth 3 million on the back end. This is a killer deal at 930, right? But that's actually not the case, because you have to be a lot more familiar with the market and with the area. And so that comes over time. And it also comes from being current, right? So I'm still out talking to other investors, whether I'm at an REI event, which is a face-to-face, networking event, where a lot of developers really are. They're not hanging out in Facebook groups for the most part. Those are more fix and flippers. So if you want to play in the big game and you want to start doing some small lot development or tear down stuff, or at least just get more information, you definitely want to have anywhere between 5 and 10 of these people in your back pocket. And they are going to be the ones to tell you what the price per square foot is. In these higher end markets, yes, the agent should know. Every now and again, you're going to get a rogue agent, but the agent should know, what the price per square foot is and so forth. And you can start to learn that way. And listen, in all the free downtime that you're going to have doing this, cold call some agents that are in these areas that you want to be in, or worse, maybe you don't know, something about, I'll just say Beverly Hills, because that's where we were, and cold call some agents and just say, hey, I'm new at this. Can I pick your brain on this? Yeah. Can I pay? Sometimes people just want money. Can I give you an Amazon card? Can I take you out for coffee? Whatever. All of this matters. In fact, if you're not doing anything, go to the Brokers Open, whatever day that is of the week. And around here, it's Tuesdays. Go to the Brokers Open and you get face-to-face with those agents. That's just more tips and tricks for you guys to learn, train, and develop what you're doing. You've got to get out of your comfort zone, to get more knowledgeable in doing this, and it will come over time. So, Jaden, my man, I love you so much. I really do. You got a special place in my heart. And for anybody who wants to get a hold of you because they were wowed and appreciate you and you're working, I think, the entire SoCal market, right? Like, tell them how they get a hold of you. Yeah, you can text me at 909-329-0482. If you have any questions, if you need any help on comps. I know for me, it was very valuable to have someone that I can lean on to help me with comps, even if it's not something that I'm getting under contract. But just as you're learning and understanding, what I would ask from you is that you at least give it a shot. If you need help with a comp and you're not sure on what to offer or what your ARV is, send me the address. Also, send me maybe what you think ARV is, because that's going to be the fastest way for you to learn what you think ARV is, what comps you use, and I'm more than happy to comp it for you and let you know where I'm at.
Always just a go-giver, Jaden. Look, I've called Jaden. Jaden's called me, right? Nobody knows everything. So this is what this show is about, in the spirit of collaboration, connection, and education. So if this brought you value, guys, please, as the kids say, smash the subscribe button. That does help the algorithm. That does give you an indicator of when the show is going to be on. And also just pass the word. We're going to have different guests on every week. Some of you guys in here know Miss Corianne Wright, who is my co-host for Ask an Agent Anything. That is another show that we have on Tuesdays at 1 Pacific Coast time. And we talk about all things agents and investing in that show. But I want to give her a shout out, especially here, because she's right before me on Comping Colorado. So if any of you want to just get a different perspective, if maybe Colorado is going to be your market, maybe you want to buy something in Colorado, go get educated over there. It's right before this show. So thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. We've had a lot of folks on today. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Shoot me a DM in my Instagram. It's my full name, Jaden Smith. I don't know where you are. You're on Facebook, yeah? You're like the youngest person I know that is not active on social media.
I am on Facebook. I don't know if I'm very active, but if you do me or you guys have my number, you'll be able to get a hold of me.
He's busy doing other cool stuff that I can't even keep up with him. So anyway, guys, appreciate you all. See you next week. Pass the word. It means the world to me. And hopefully this brings you value. So give us some comments, give us some likes. We'll see you next week. Jaden, thank you so much. Love you, brother.
Thanks
Be
for
well.
having me.
Bye.